You're listening to The Humans We Are with Carola, episode number 7. Hello, my lovely human friends. How are you doing? How is your human doing today? What feelings are you noticing in her? I have noticed that my human has been pretty scattered lately. Since coming back from our trip, it's been such a challenge to go back to the routines that we had tackled before the trip. So I'm focusing now on being patient and very loving and helping her the best I can to go back to those routines little by little. For example, this week we are making sure to take a walk every day. It's such a simple thing, but we were in that groove before the trip, and now it's been a little bit challenging to go back to that. So it doesn't matter how long, even if it's just a few minutes, we are focusing on tackling the category, if that makes sense. So we are tackling the category of going for a walk and not necessarily the time, like the target time that I would like to go on a walk every day. So if we can't make a longer walk on a given day, we just use what we got and we do what we can. So, and I found that often my clients, and I myself too, would rather skip something if we don't have the time that we wanted to spend on the thing to begin with. And we'd rather not do it than do it for a shorter period of time. So if I can't go for a 20-minute walk, sometimes my brain says I shouldn't go at all, instead of going for a 10-minute walk or even a 5-minute walk. And when we do that, we miss the opportunity to build that momentum, the momentum and the identity to be the person who takes a walk every day. It's perfectionism, really, in its most evidently unhelpful way. So, highly recommend tackle the category and don't focus on the length of time at first while you are developing that habit, either if it's a new habit or an old habit that you fell out of. And that way you will start getting that nice streak going. You will build that momentum, and it's way more helpful than just trying to go for the length of time that is like your ideal version of it. We've also been focusing on food. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and my human. So we've been focusing on food, on meal times and cravings. I usually do 1 to 2 meals a day. That's like my normal way of eating. And I eat pretty clean for the most part. But during our trip, it was a bit different, both in frequency and also in the content of those meals. So now we're focusing on gently getting back to those quote unquote normal habits from before the trip. And it's going really well. Okay, so 2 episodes ago, I asked you what a life well lived meant to you. And I sort of made the case for the importance of answering the question for yourself. And at the end of that episode, I offered 4 tools, 4 tips to keep in mind that you could use to help figure out your own definition of a life well lived. Today, we're going to cover the first one of those tools, which we're going to call a value alignment check of your life. If you've coached with me before, it's very likely that we have done this together. This is one of my and also my clients' favorite exercise because it's super insightful and it gives you the chance to make immediate changes or shifts to improve your life experience in the short, in the medium, and also in the long term. I actually recommend doing this exercise every year and even more frequently if there are any major changes in your life. But at the very least, do it this once. Okay, I'm gonna answer 3 questions during this episode. Number 1, what is a value alignment check? Number 2, why it's important and why you should do it at the very least once in your life. And number 3, how can you do it on your own? Okay? And please stay until the end, because I'm going to share how you can get a hold of a free resource that I created for those of you who might want to go a little bit deeper with the exercise, and or those of you who don't want to be taking notes while you listen to this podcast episode and would just rather have a version of this in written format. So let's start with first defining what it means to do a value alignment check. Very simply put, it consists of 2 parts. Part number 1 is that you're going to notice what you tend to value in your life, and you're also going to decide what you want to make it a point in prioritizing in your life. For example, you may notice that throughout your life, freedom and authenticity, just to give 2 examples, have always been values that you care about and that you have consciously or unconsciously been aligned with those 2, and maybe you have used them to make decisions in your life. Great. And you may also consider that at this point in your life, you want to focus on prioritizing more the values of, let's say, connection and discipline. And if you look at your life, you haven't been as effective or intentional about being aligned with those, but you know that that's like a goal for you. And I'm going to suggest that you come up with no more than 5 to 6 core values for this exercise. And I know that for some of you, this may sound like too few, and it may become a little bit challenging to decide because you value maybe a broader spectrum of things. So I want to invite you to think about a shorter time frame, and it could be, for example, this year. That's the typical time frame that I suggest my clients that they use when they find it challenging to narrow it down, because sometimes the brain goes to a place where you think that you're deciding the 6 values for the rest of your life, and that can feel overwhelming and it can paralyze you. So think shorter term. You can renew and review these 5 to 6 values every year, or even in a shorter period of time. You can decide that you're going to pick 5 or 6 now, and in 3 more months, you're going to recheck if those are still relevant for you. Okay? And the part 2 of this value alignment check is that you're going to take a typical week in your life, an average, a representative week where you work some days and you have some days off. And I'm trying to say that you don't use a vacation week for this part, because we're going to look at your schedule and you're going to see very clearly, and maybe for the first time in your life, how the way you're spending your time maps and either aligns with or doesn't align with your personal values that you want to make sure that you take care of. That is super powerful. And this brings us to the second question that I'm covering today. Why it's important and why you should do this exercise at the very least once in your life. And hopefully you will do it once a year. I normally try to do it every New Year's, when I am reviewing my goals and evaluating my previous year, the year that is ending. I incorporate this exercise in that time of the year too. And if there are any major life changes, like for example, if your relationship status changes, if you change jobs, if a child is going out for college, or like any major thing, may be an opportunity to review your core values for that period of time. So when you do the second part of your value alignment check, you will start seeing some interesting things. You will notice that some of your values are very well covered with the things that you're doing on a weekly basis, while some others may not be. And this is going to be a huge aha moment for many of you, because your perception of your life experience is built out of all your moments. So when there are values that are important for you, and yet there's no alignment or very little alignment between them and how you're actually spending your time, how you're living your life, that's when you start feeling out of sorts. That's when I notice in people who come to my practice, I see it all the time, that people feel stuck in your professional life or in your relationships, or you may feel unsatisfied as a partner, as a friend, as a professional. You feel confused because you think that you should feel amazing with all that you have accomplished in all areas of your life, yet you don't feel satisfied enough. And when that happens, usually the first thing that your brain offers you to quote unquote fix those unpleasant feelings, to get you to feel better, is some sort of major life change. So, and to be clear, I'm not against major life changes. And if you come to my coaching space with that for coaching, the first thing that we are going to take a look at together is this value alignment check. That is why it's so important to do this exercise, because even if you decide to move forward with a major change, like changing jobs or careers, or getting a divorce, or changing your body in any major way, moving cities or countries, etc., you won't do it blindly and just hoping that the new circumstance finally create what you want. No, you will know exactly what values you want to be more aligned with. What do you want your life to be more aligned with? And it will massively illuminate any decision moving forward for you. Your job, your career, or your main relationships in your life don't need to necessarily be the source of alignment for everything in your life, for your main values. But sometimes when we don't see this picture clearly, we expect that every value in our priority list needs to be covered with the current layout of our life, so to speak. Okay, so to mention some examples that I've seen in clients in the past, let me cite one client, and one of her top values was adventure. And when she did the exercise, she realized that one, her job wasn't a place where she could find adventure, and in her relationship, she had not intentionally tried to create space for adventure. But because she hadn't seen the picture this way, she was considering either changing careers or moving to a different city, and she was questioning if her partner was the right one for her. So can you see right now, if you think about it, in which ways your brain might be coming up with these sort of extreme solutions for a misalignment that might be in your life between what you really value and the current sort of like by default layout of your life. When this client realized that she really valued adventure and she really wanted to feel adventure and have space for adventure in her life, and she saw that she wasn't being intentional about creating space for it at all, and that was a big need for her, she realized that she didn't need a big life change. It wasn't necessary to make a big life change, because to begin with, a big life change doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's gonna solve for that need. And she saw that she could also consider smaller ways, more progressive ways, in which she could start with a small thing that could create space for adventure in her life. Whatever your life looks like right now, it's mostly by default, more like an organic result of decisions that you've made, what was available for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we expect this current life layout to hit all the values that are important to us, that's just a recipe for frustration. And when it doesn't match, the brain comes up very often with the story that there's something wrong, that needs, like a drastic change needs to be made. Okay? That is why it's so important to perform this value alignment check on your life. Now, let me answer the third question. How do you do this on your own? And here's a simple 3-step process to do it on your own time. And it's as follows. So number 1, you're going to come up with your 5 to 6 top values, and then you're going to make sure that you have them in order of priority. This is important, so don't overlook that part where you or organize them in order of priority, because that's going to help you illuminate decisions. For example, if you have freedom and money among your top values for the year, and you're presented with an opportunity to make big money, but it comes at the cost of freedom. So you will know it's not a good fit for you if freedom is higher on your list than money. Now, if for that year money is higher on your list than freedom for this particular cycle, then you can be more confident that taking that opportunity is in alignment for you. So it's really important to have them organized in order of priority. Step number 2 is write down a sample week schedule with every slot of time accounted for as best as you can with what you are doing. So include all your activities, including work stuff, personal stuff, family, friends, everything that you typically do in a Monday to Sunday period. So do your best. I know this is probably not a very exact science, but do your best to be as thorough as you can, because it's going to be more helpful. And in step number 3, we're going to compare how you're using your time with your values, and you're going to identify where you have gaps in alignment. The simplest way to do this is next to everything in your schedule, you're going to write a number 1 to 6 for each of the values that are being covered by that item in your schedule. So for example, if you have in your schedule something where you meditate and journal and do some sort of self-reflection or self-coaching, and one of your values is self-growth or self-care or calm or peace, you're going to put the number of that value next to that time slot in your schedule. So you're going to end up with that weekly schedule with every time slot accounted for in terms of what you are doing during that time, even if it's just resting time or watching TV or scrolling social media. Make sure that you account for all your waking hours as best as possible. And next to what you do in that time, you're going to write 1 number, 2 numbers, 3, etc., according to which and how many of your values are being hit with that particular activity. That's how you're gonna see a very clear picture of how your current life unintentional design or layout is either aligned or misaligned, where you have gaps in alignment between how you're spending your week, your time, your life, and what you value, what you declare that you value. This can be such an enlightening exercise. And for so many people, for most people, it usually provides for a big aha moment that can help you make instant shifts in how you're spending your time and your attention and your energy. Okay? So, congratulations. Now that you have that clear picture of how well aligned your life is with your values, you can better understand why you might have felt stuck, unsatisfied, confused, even depressed. Next week, I'm going to cover the second tool in this Life Well Lived series, which is all about being intentional on how you are spending your human time, your energy over these periods of time that make sense to you. So you see how these are going to build upon each other. So if you haven't listened to episode number 5 yet, it would be a good idea to do that now. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that I was going to share how to get a resource to help you go deeper into the exercise, and or if you wanted a written format so that you don't have to take notes. So I prepared a PDF version of the exercise with templates for you to fill out, so that you can print this and it will be super easy to complete it and to have your own value alignment check. If you want to get it, there are 2 options, and I'm trying to have something for those of you who are not on Instagram. So one is to comment with the word values under the post corresponding to this episode on Instagram. You can find me as @FuertesCarola, and then you will find the post. It's usually in a reel format for this episode, which is number 7. So you will just comment the word values in the comment section, and I will make sure that you receive this. Or if you're not on Instagram or you don't want to do that, you can just email me at carolafuertes@gmail.com with the word values in your subject. You don't even have to write anything else more than that, and I will make sure to get that workbook in your hands. That's it. Super simple, no other hoops to jump through. So, did you like this episode? I sure hope you did, and if that's the case, please share it with a human you love that you think might benefit from it too or like it too. And if you have already shared the podcast, thank you. I know many of you have, because the downloads doubled in a week. I'm so grateful. I can't even tell you. I'm super grateful and excited. And of course, if you can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, that would be super helpful to help the algorithms show the show to more people. And I know some of you already left 5-star reviews, and I'm super grateful for that. Today, I want to highlight the person who left a 5-star review by the name of Knitting Kathy. She titled it "Do It For Yourself," and she says, "It is important to take care of your physical and mental self. Carola guides you in your journey in a very thoughtful talk." Thank you, Knitting Kathy, for taking the time to leave that review. I highly appreciate it. Next week, I will be covering how to be intentional about the way you spend your time, your energy, your money, and your attention to create your own definition of a life well lived. So that's a wrap for now. I will talk to you soon, and in the meantime, just notice what the human you are values and make space for more of it. That's all, my lovely humans. Bye bye.